and founder of multiple research networks. His contributions span interdisciplinary fields, including decolonial and Bangsamoro studies, and has published extensively on these subjects. Dr. Adiong graduated magna cum laude with a degree in international studies from the University of the East, an institution that later recognized him as one of its 75 most outstanding alumni. He earned his master's degree in international studies from the University of the Philippines, where he would go on to teach and be honored as a UP scientist and recipient of the UP Diliman Centennial Professional Chair. He holds a PhD in international relations from the Middle East Technical University. His academic journey has also been supported by prestigious international fellowships, including the study of the United States Institute's program on religious pluralism at the Temple University, the Chevening Fellowship at the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies, and grants from TÜBİTAK in Turkey and the EU's Erasmus Mundus program. Our dear guests, participants today, let's give a warm round of applause to Dr. Nassef Manabilang Adiong, who will give us a topic on moral governance in BARMM.
Thank you, Ron. Can everyone hear me when I speak here on my end? Okay. Thanks for the introduction. So I'll be speaking about the moral governance, and everyone's thinking about and contemplating and asking and inquiring what's moral governance is all about since the establishment of the Bangsamoro government as precluded by the organic law. Just a second. Okay. So way back in 2019, everyone's asking what's moral governance all about, and to give some initial thoughts about. Can you see my slides moving? Because sometimes
Yes,
there are
we can see your slide.
difficulties. So it moves from the second slide.
Yes.
You can see the contents, okay? Just to make sure everything's in order. So these are the contents of what I'm going to talk about. It's very, very short, just to give you an idea and how I provided some theoretical principles that are rooted from Islamic philosophy and Islamic governance, and then how did the government, the regional government, have applied what they think about is moral governance. Firstly, in legislation, and then secondly, in the programs of the Bangsamoro government. First, in the idea that the chief minister then, Murad, have spoken about when he was interviewed in Istanbul way back in 2019. He said, and I quote, when we joined the government, we found out that there are so many anomalies in the government. So when we see if we cannot change the system, and I'm just reading what he stated here, then there is no way we will succeed. For example, corruption. Corruption is built already in the government, and this is what we have also been experiencing day to day, not only in the Bangsamoro government, but also as well as in the national government. It is automatic because it is already built in. That's why our advocacy is moral governance. So we will see here what's the difference between the Western-based, as defined by some many multilateral organizations such as the World Bank, on good governance, and we will see how did the MILF or the leadership of the Bangsamoro have conceptualized and think about the moral governance that they are espousing in. And he also stated here that, and for the first time, when people join the government, we let them take oath to the Constitution and take oath to Allah, a noble oath, to ensure that this moral governance will be the basis So when I was invited way back in 2021 to serve the BTA, Policy Research and Legal Services, when we had our oath, we also take an oath of allegiance to moral governance. So we say, and as I continue reading what he stated here, we are not imposing the moral virtues of Islam, because if you look at the moral virtues of Islam, it is for the mankind. It is not only for Muslims. You will notice in the Holy Quran that there are many verses which are addressed to mankind instead of only to Muslims. So we are careful also because maybe they will be saying we are establishing an Islamic government, which is not very popular among the other people in the area. Because as you can see, you can also think Bangsamoro as a kind of a tripartite, a tri-community of Muslims, IPs, and community settlers. Also, Chief Minister Ibrahim also stated that the moral governance will start from the call for jihad with an oath before the Quran. He emphasized that the moral background of our governance is our faith, and that we must define what morality means for ourselves before we can start governance. So when I started working in the parliament and also reviewing many of the legislations and what could be mean when we speak of and think about and probably internalize what moral governance is for every moral people. So I started to try to conceptualize and think of what could be the actions or what we speak of theorems or principles that might be within and be embedded on moral governance. So I take a look at the Bangsamoro Organic Law, and when I read the Bangsamoro Organic Law, I saw some principles that you can also juxtapose with certain theorems or theoretical principles in Islam. So as you can see in your slide, if we can see that it moved to the third slide, there are five theorems that I propose that are juxtaposed to the Bangsamoro Organic Law. Firstly is we have faith. So these are the principles that I'm speaking of: faith, freedom, moral authority, common good, and social ethics. In the Bangsamoro Organic Law, faith is actually enshrined in the preamble, as you can see. And if I could just provide a quotation: imploring the aims of Almighty God in recognition of the aspirations of the Bangsamoro people, reflective of their system of life as prescribed by their faith, in harmony with their customary laws, cultures, and traditions, so on and so forth. The second one being is we can see in Article 4, Section 10 until Article 9, Section 5, is that accountability and responsibility characterize freedom, which is the second principle of moral governance in Islam. When we speak of Islamic freedom, it is an inward act that links the spiritual self with exaltation connected to dignity and respect, which you can see in many of the Quranic verses. It actually tacitly entails and necessitates knowledge of heaven and earth and of virtues and vices, whereas the ultimate exercises of freedom is precisely the operation of being free from the influence and domination of the what we call ego or egotistical desires that might incite evil. The state of perfection or perfect submission to Allah and the choice of good and wanton affection of the transcendent are attributes pertaining to individual freedom in many Muslim societies across civilizationals. So you can see that in Article 4, General Principles and Policies, Section 10, freedom of choice, that the freedom of choice of all people within the Bangsamoro region shall be respected, including indigenous people shall have the freedom to retain their distinct indigenous and ethnic identity, in addition to their Bangsamoro political identity. Also, as well as in Article 9, Section 5, it also provide an emphasis to religious freedom, so that the Bangsamoro government shall guarantee religious freedom and the free exercise pursuant to the Constitution, national laws, and principles of international law. The third theorem that I propose as part of when we theorize moral governance is moral authority. Here, moral authority, which is the third principle, is legitimized if it serves the higher purpose or objectives of Sharia or maqasid al Sharia, including the epistemological sources of Islam, such as the Quran and the Sunnah. So the crucial element of moral authority in Sharia is to regulate the welfare and the prevention of harm by considering the significance of life, intellect, faith, wealth, and progeny, or securing that there are descendants of or offspring along ahead of. So the Quran and the Sunnah, which are the epistemological source of Islam, establishes that the sovereignty belonging to Allah alone, and humans are endowed with mandate to govern through popular vicegerency. So the moral authority from the hakimiyya or sovereignty of God is now bestowed to the humanity through a what we call vicegerency. So this exercise of delegated power or on behalf of the sovereign, which can be you can also attain in various ways as long as it is agreed by the Ummah or by the entire Muslim community. You can see many in the dynasties, also as well as based on hereditary rule of Muslim civilizations. Here, you can see that moral authority is quite pronounced in Article 4, Section 3, which is the democratic political system, that the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region shall have a democratic political system that allows its people to freely participate in the political process. As well as you can see in Section 4, electoral system, that the Bangsamoro government shall adopt an electoral system which will be consistent with national election laws. So you can see probably in the previous sessions of these series of talks that they have also discussed about electoral system in the Bangsamoro, which is a parliamentary system. And also Section 5, the civilian government, that the governance shall be the responsibility of the duly elected civilian government. You can also take a look at as pronouns that are somehow conduent to moral authority on Article 9, Basic Rights, Section 11, Participation of Women in the Bangsamoro government. It provides an impetus and imperative that aside from the reserved seat for women in the parliament, there shall be at least one woman to be appointed to the Bangsamoro cabinet. Now we are now going to talk about the fourth element, the common good, based on Islamic-rooted moral governance. It is actually characterized by public welfare, in Arabic maslaha, and also public interest or istisla. For this common good, as you can see, you can take a look at Article 5 of the Organic Law, Section 3, general welfare. So it is somehow also embedded that you can see the pronouncement of maslaha, public welfare, and public interest, public interest istisla on in Section 3, general welfare, that the Bangsamoro government shall exercise the power expressly granted, those necessarily implied, as well as powers necessarily appropriate or incidental for its efficient and effective governance, and those which are essential to the promotion of for general welfare. Now, the last theoretical principle is social ethics. It constitutes actually the following interrelated theorems in social ethics. Firstly, community. Second, trust. Third, justice, peace, and equality. And there's so many articles that I don't want to go on with it. You can see here Article 4, Section 6, promotion of unity, Section 7, social justice, Section 9, rights of non-Moro indigenous peoples. Also in Article 10, Article 9, Section 6, human rights. Um, Section 8, right of access to basic services. Section 10, rights of labor, rights of the youth in Section 13, and Section 14, rights of children, and as well as in Article 13, regional economy and patrimony, there are also rights afforded to indigenous peoples regarding their access and use of natural resources in the Bangsamoro jurisdiction. Now, when we try to apply, when the Bangsamoro tried to apply moral governance, they actually applied it to two approaches. One being is the on legislation. The first legislation, as you can see, that provided a legal definition about what moral governance is under the Bangsamoro Autonomy Act 13 or the Bangsamoro Administrative Code. In the introductory provisions, it connotes that in Section 3, letter J, the Bangsamoro government in pursuit of moral governance, and then again it was defined in Section 4 that moral governance refers to the set of rules, practices, and processes completely devoid of all the evils of graft and corruption, and explicitly driven by the moral principles of utmost dedication, devotion, honesty, justice, and integrity. Also, as well as under the same BAA, in Chapter 5, which is on Section 19, Ethics and Governance, that all public officers and employees shall be guided by the core values of moral governance, which is, again, later on, we will speak of how this definition was expounded and expanded under the Bangsamoro Civil Service Code. In Chapter 7 of the Admin Code, Official Oath, it is mandatory to take the oath of moral governance. And you can just read what's the oath of moral governance is under the BAA. Now, under the Bangsamoro Civil Service Code, it expounded and included in the legal definition the word excellence or isan. You can also take a look at in Chapter 3 on the Civil Service Code that here when we speak of screening process of those who will be getting hired, that each agency in the Bangsamoro government shall evolve its own screening process, which may include tests of fitness and another selection process as a test to commitment to moral governance. And as well as in Article 18 of the Civil Service Code of the Bangsamoro, that it shall include the inculcation of moral governance principles and practices when we speak of employee onboarding program. You can also take a look at Book 3 of the Conduct of Civil Servants, adherence to, this is under Article 170, Norms of Conduct of Civil Servants of the Bangsamoro government, where they pertain to adherence to moral governance and the application of commitment to moral governance that requires, here it's included again some of the new elements, principles that requires a sense of ikhlas, sincerity, perfection, itkan, excellence, and optimism of the faul. Now, as well as in upholding the moral governance, you can also take a look at Article 171. So there is a certain kind of evolution of the legal definition of moral governance from the Admin Code to the Civil Service Code. With regards to the application in government programs, you can take a look at many of the mission, vision, and strategic goals of ministries, offices, agencies of the Bangsamoro. For example, and for instance, I'm going to provide an example here that the vision mission of the Bangsamoro Secretariat of the Transition Authority, that in its mission, that as parliamentary professionals, we are committed to providing optimal support, services, etc., and in pursuit of genuine and meaningful autonomy and moral governance. Here, they also included as part of their strategic goal under number 6, the cross-cutting themes, that there should be an instilled moral governance with genuine and meaningful autonomy. Here also as well, it is also accorded that all employees, let me check if there are some messages. There are also that all employees in the Bangsamoro government must also as well undergo what we call VTT and DET, the values transformation training and values enhancement training, where it is primarily all about Islamic. So it's an orientation to people to gain access and knowledge to Islamic principles. As well as one program of the previous chief minister under the Office of the Chief Minister support to local moral governance program, where these support to local moral governance aims to empower the constituent local government units to effectively participate in the regional governance process, improve basic utilities and facilities, support the quality of life, and making BARMM a livable place to every Bangsamoro region. So these are all well-funded programs under the Bangsamoro government, especially the support to local moral governance program. So I think I will stop here. As you can see that as we move from the idea beforehand in 2019, and then I provided some theoretical principles, how it was also well embedded and well explicitly pronounced under the Bangsamoro Organic Law, and how they applied the moral governance in terms of policy making, in their legislation making, and also included in the programs, funded programs of the different ministries, offices, agencies across Bangsamoro governance. So I will stop here and thank you for listening, and also looking forward to our open forum after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nassef.